Welcome everybody to Beyond the Shadows. I'm author and ghost historian Mike Ricksecker. Up tonight we're going to be talking about disclosure and the coronavirus. Yeah, how in the world are these two related? I'm talking disclosure as in like extraterrestrial alien stuff, but there actually is a relationship here as far as how we handle these types of situations. You know, large news items like coronavirus or the panic buying. We're going to get into the toilet paper here, people. This is kind of what inspired all of this. And when it would come to a big ticket news item like disclosure. So this is where we're going to be going, that rabbit hole. Well, this is Beyond the Shadows, but it is the edge of the rabbit hole after show, right? And I do excuse not having the blue lights. We're still without our second blue light. We only have the one, so still looking at getting that replaced. And also need to throw this out there. This episode of Beyond the Shadows is brought to you by Haunted Road Roast. It helps you hunt ghosts. All right. So now that we have all that stuff out of the way, great to see everybody down there. A lot of familiar names in the house. It's fantastic. So here's where we're going with this. I posted this meme. Everybody's been throwing memes out there like crazy lately because everything is going on with the coronavirus and all the quarantines and the worldwide pandemic that we have going on. But this one, even though everybody laughed, it caught everybody's attention, I think I had like 400 shares on this. And I don't usually get that many on my personal Facebook page. But so this one, this panic with the toilet paper is the reason why you people can't be told the truth about aliens. And it's one of those that you laugh at it like, ha ha ha, that's funny. But really there is some truth to this. There really is. So in 1960, there was the Brookings Report, which had a lot of different things in it that it covered. The big takeaway that a lot of people that are interested in extraterrestrials, disclosure, that sort of thing, the big takeaway from that community was that because basically here, and I'll rattle off a couple things that it looked into. So implications of satellite-based communication systems, implications of a space-derived weather predicting system, implications of technological byproducts. So basically it's examining or gauging what people's reactions would be to a number of different things that would be introduced to them. And one of those things, of course, would be extraterrestrials. Of course, a lot of people took this as, again, this was 1960, a lot of people took this as they were admitting there were actual extraterrestrials that they had already interacted with. And it very well could be that had already happened. I mean, Project Blue Book was already in full swing. There were all the different sightings, the UFO sightings from the late 1940s, early 1952 is when it really took off. They call that the flap of 52. And so all those different things were already happening. Of course, there are other sightings and what have you still going on. So within this report, basically it was derived that if the people at the time, we're talking 1960, so you do the math, that was 60 years ago, that they would be distraught over finding out that there were actual, extraterrestrials. There would be a panic, right? And so that is basically what this meme is essentially referencing. That, hey, this is the reason why you guys can't be introduced, because we already know that it's going to create a panic, and you guys are going to do stupid things like, buy all the toilet paper. And Tom McNicholas is saying he still needs paper towels. Yeah, I mean, there's a shortage of all kinds of stuff. And, in my local community here, it wasn't really until, I was over there, 4, maybe 5 days ago, and everything was fine. I mean, I'd already seen photos and heard news reports and saw different videos of stores across the country that were out of a lot of different things. Over here was fine, but I went in there today and yeah, they're out of toilet paper now and a number of other items. I guess they keep selling out of meat and all kinds of stuff. So people are panic buying right now. So, how did this happen? How did this, start to snowball, and why? And, is this still a reason? See, what I'm wondering here, the coronavirus in and of itself, that we definitely have concern over that, and I'm not going to get into that debate of how concerned we should be about that, because there's some people that think that we are overblowing the entire thing, that all these quarantines are too much, and there's a lot of other opinions about, well, we're being extremely proactive. Usually we're reactive, and this time we're actually being proactive. So the whole social distancing is a good thing. So I'm not going to get into that debate with this particular show. What I want to get into is more of how people's reactions lead to different things, and we're going to get a little conspiracy theory-ish here. So the toilet paper. What happened here? Okay, so I put this one out there the other day. I grabbed the Men in Black quote and tossed this up on my Facebook the other day. So this is when Will Smith is not yet Agent J. He's being recruited by Tommy Lee Jones, K. And so J, when he's still Edward, says, people are smart, they can handle it. K says, a person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. And that's really kind of the idea here. People have panicked. People in general. A person can be rather reasonable, but people end up getting that like crazy, panicky herd mentality. And once the shit starts to roll, it really starts to roll. I guess it wasn't necessarily a pun intended, but hey, we're talking toilet paper rolls, so why not pun intended? So I tried to find the source of this whole toilet paper thing. Where did this originate? Was it somebody's post on Twitter, Facebook? Who was the person that first reported, hey, I walked into my store and I can't find toilet paper now because of this, this worldwide virus that's going on. A lot of people are being funny about it. I don't understand how, coronavirus leads to people buying the toilet paper, because that's not one of the symptoms. It's coughing and all these other things. It's not diarrhea. And it's not that. There is part of me wonders if somebody just didn't get a little funny with it and created a little hoax. I think it's kind of a hoax anyways, but like on their Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and just threw it out there. Oh, I'm not able to find toilet paper now. Just kind of like hyping it up, that sort of thing. That the virus is happening, the pandemic's going on. I can't find toilet paper. They're amping up the whole apocalyptic thing, but their store really hadn't. They're just saying it, but yet people are getting nervous, and they see something like this, and they're like, "Oh my God, there's an actual shortage of toilet paper here. This person is saying that they can't find toilet paper at their supermarket. Oh my God, I better go buy some toilet paper. Make sure that I don't run out." And I totally get it in that, if you have like half a package, at your home, you're gonna last some days with that. But what happens if you go to the store because you need some, and everybody else is completely panicked and the store is out? So now you're like, I better go and get some. And so, people start to buy and buy. Others have gone way off the deep end and think that there's going to be no toilet paper for the next year and a half, and have bought like 1,000 rolls, which is like absurd. And the one that really gets me is I think it was in Australia, where somebody bought like 48 cases of toilet paper. They thought they had bought 48 rolls, but they bought 48 cases, and somehow they didn't realize what they had bought. And I'm just sitting there like, wouldn't the price at checkout have let you know that there was a problem? There's a big difference between buying 48 rolls of toilet paper and 48 cases. A big price difference, So, Diane Hilbert, was I supposed to go out and panic buy? Well, yeah, apparently. I mean, I've I've stocked up on a few things, but I haven't gone to the store and like loaded up 3 carts or anything. It's like, yeah, we'll make sure we have a little bit of extra canned food. I mean, we had canned items in there. I was in the Boy Scouts, so it's always kind of like be prepared. So I had stuff anyway, but it's like, yeah, I'll go ahead and get a couple, a few other cans of stuff just in case, stuff like that. Sherry Walkle saying toilet paper isn't the only thing. Children's Tylenol is hard to come by. There's a lot of different things now that are starting to become hard to come by. Medicines are selling out. A lot of meats. Apparently, produce has been okay, but that was something I forgot to buy today. I was going to get eggs today, and I forgot to buy eggs. I'm going to have to go back tomorrow. But there's a lot of different things that are actually starting to run out. Bread is another one. People are buying up all the milk and stuff like that. So that's one idea, that it was a hoax thrown out there by just, an average Joe, just like you or me, throwing up there on the social media. Oh, hey, I can't find toilet paper. Ha ha ha. And it blows up into this huge thing. The other idea goes back to this Brookings Report and this idea that, people can't handle it, that they will get, panicky and crazy and will do all sorts of nutty things. And this is why we can't introduce people to the aliens, because they're going to just go nuts, that they're going to start going to the stores and buying up all the toilet paper. So coronavirus is a legit thing that's going on. So why don't we inject an idea into the world, into society, that there's a shortage on something. We have this coronavirus thing going on. This is a reason, might seem a little weird, but this is a reason why there could be a shortage of something. And we will purposely make it something weird, like toilet paper. And we'll inject that into that thought, into the masses, that there is a shortage here. And we'll see what they do. Coronavirus is legit, yes, but the toilet paper shortage could have absolutely been created without even there being a shortage at all. Just the idea that there is, and see what they do. And we'll see how the masses handle it, as a huge social experiment. Let's see, hey, for 60 years ago, we're deciding that they can't handle the aliens. Let's see if they're still of that same nutty mindset and introduce an idea and see how they react. Let's see if humans have really, over the last 60 years, gotten a little bit more intelligent, had a little bit more common sense or what have you. And no, no. It's Tom McNicholas says, going shopping is always a stress reducer. Interesting. You don't see too many people say that. I personally don't like going shopping. I will go buy things that I need, but going to the stores, I have never quite liked. Dave Wilkerson, guy here, bought 17,700 of the sanitizing wipes. That's another problem that happened along with this. There are people that created shortages. So this idea has been injected into society. Let's see what happens. And once that shortage is introduced, then you start having people like this guy that are going to try to profit off of it and go around store to store to store to store, buy everything up. So now he's the only supplier, puts his stuff up on eBay and all that, or as an Amazon third-party seller, and he's the place you have to go to get it, and he can up the price and therefore profit off of a pandemic. It's very unethical. Now, I have no problem with people buying stuff and reselling it, but when he basically helped to create the shortage. He really did. He helped to create the shortage. He created the market, and it's just completely unethical. So this is a byproduct of this. If this is truly, they've injected this idea into the masses, which again is kind of a conspiracy theory, but I would not put it past the government to do something like that as a social experiment to see what they're going to do. Just this seed of a thought. It's kind of like Inception. You just inject the thought, see what happens. And yeah, so it started with toilet paper, it went to hand sanitizer. Now it's like everything in the store. We were already, people started bulk buying, like this guy. He was trying to profit off of it. Other people were hearing about, toilet paper shortage, and so they're going and buying things up. And then people started, hearing nationwide now stuff is disappearing off the shelves. Now we're being essentially put under a quarantine. It's kind of a loose quarantine. So now people are going and buying like weeks worth of food. Restaurants are shut down and stuff like that. So now you have people going to the stores and panic buying and buying 5 times as much as they normally would. So Chanel Fletcher saying that she saw, what was that? Did you say a 4-pack of toilet paper, $75? Yeah, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. So I am going to open up the call in here in just a little bit, just as long as the stream goes okay. But yeah, I noticed what was going on. It was starting to actually just black out here, and then it brought up the setup screen. It was doing weird stuff. So, all right. The screen was lagging and everything. Yeah, I do apologize for that. Meanwhile, part one, Mike talked about toilet paper. I did. I talked about toilet paper. But really the idea is that they injected the idea into society to do a social experiment to see how we would react. And it's like, okay, that's very conspiracy theory-ish. But here's another thing that I discovered in the news just here yesterday, last night really, when they were talking about San Francisco going under lockdown. I call it lockdown for lack of a better term. I know that they're, what is the actual term they use? Some politically correct term they're using. But basically it's a quarantine for the city. They don't want people going out and doing all these things. So limited activity that you can do outside the home. One thing that I noticed that they said at the end of this article, and this came from the AP Wire, it was posted up on some of the different news sites, was that it was concerned over the homeless. The city has 108,000 homeless people. So where are they all going to go if you're basically telling people to get off the streets? Well, their ideas was to put them in motels. That's idea number one. Idea number two is to put them in 450 state-owned trailers that they had set up before the outbreak. And I'm looking at that like, okay, they set up the trailers before the outbreak. How do they know the outbreak was going to happen in order to set up the trailers in the first place? What were they using these trailers for? Why were they set up to begin with? Just the way that read it just made me scratch my head. Like, okay, did they know something like this was going to happen? Now, we know this originated in China and all that stuff, but it starts to make you wonder, like, okay, how much of this is, I heard conspiracy theories like 15 years ago after 9/11 that, they were setting up the FEMA trailers and there were going to be like these concentration camps, all this weird shit. My ex-father-in-law was a huge conspiracy theorist and went off the deep end on some of this sort of stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, we're not in concentration camps and all this other garbage, but it did harken back to this idea of setting up trailers and putting people in them. So what's going on here that they had already set these things up. And now this is their idea of how to handle the homeless is they're going to shove them in these trailers. I don't know how many people are supposed to be to a trailer, and I hope there's some sort of, that they're taking care of them and all that. But it just is kind of like a head scratcher over, okay, how much of this, I mean, I think the virus itself is legit. Now, of course, we're talking it was, likely a research on biological warfare, and it got out and all this other stuff. Now, the coronavirus existed for years and years and years and years. This is a different strain of it. So how much of that is they were screwing around with stuff in China, it got out into the public, and now is headed worldwide? How much of it, I mean, okay, that's accidental, get that. How much of it is actually orchestrated if they already knew ahead of time to set up these trailers? So I think that we have a lot of weird things going on here with some social experimentation, some orchestration of, let's see how people react. and let's see the limits that we can push. Now, I don't think this is, I don't think we're going all like 1984 here, the George Orwell book, 1984. I don't think we're going all that route. I mean, I haven't heard that we're at war with East Asia or Eurasia yet. At least I don't think, right? But yeah, I think there's some funny stuff going on here. I think most of it's on the level, but I think there are some underlying things here that are going on that are just not quite legit. So I'll scroll down here through the chat, see if you guys have any comments or questions about all this. Victoria Monday is commenting about martial law. I mean, they could very well issue martial law curfew. That's kind of going into effect in some places. I mean, you have stores that are cutting back, 24-hour stores that are cutting back on their hours. And so, you're not allowed into restaurants in a lot of areas. Things like theaters are getting shut down, bars, what have you, which was a great thing about our St. Patrick's Day presentation today on Edge of the Rabbit Hole. The Secrets of Ireland was that, a lot of people go out to bars and Irish taverns and what have you on St. Patrick's Day night. And they weren't able to. So we're hoping a lot of people enjoyed a little bit of Irish flavor here on a night that they couldn't go out. Dave Wilkerson, Mike, to let you know, the guy that bought all that stuff got shut down on eBay. Yeah. I realized that he got shut down, but his intention was to profit off of the pandemic, which is very unethical. And so, yeah, I get that that he has a business, he's trying to make his money, but come on. I mean, don't help to create the problem. Don't profit off the problem that you've created here. That's just all kinds of wrong. Tom McNicholas, I think they knew about the virus back in November. So that's one that's been out there a little bit, is that there are a lot of people that have reported having the symptoms of the coronavirus that we have now back in November. So there's an idea that we've already gone through this at least one time. And but now it's like huge, worldwide. It's all over the place. Italy. I saw this one video from Italy yesterday on Instagram, and they're basically quarantined. But it's this apartment complex. Two high-rise apartment buildings, and they're kind of across from each other. And like everybody's out on their balcony, and there's like countless number of people that, they're all, next to each other on their balconies, up and down and then side to side. And it's like, okay, so instead of having them down on the street mingling with each other, they're all out on their balconies. They're all, they're breathing and huffing and puffing and doing whatever, partying out on the balconies. It's like, okay, they're all sharing the environment anyway, just instead of on the ground mingling about, they're on their balconies. So it's like, yeah. So I don't know how successful that's going to be for them. People are still going to get it. So Tom is also asking, why did so many people have sinus issues early January for 2 weeks? I had there's more to it than the sinus stuff. There's, the coughing and all these other different things going on with it. But, like I just had a sinus issue here, what was it, a couple weeks ago. And it was my first one in 3 years, but I get one like once every 3 years like that. I'm not usually one to get sick. I don't usually get the flu or anything like that. But about once every 3 years I go something. So it's like, yeah, and it was just as this coronavirus stuff was starting. It's like, but it wasn't the coronavirus. It's just, I had a sinus infection going on. So there's legit stuff out there. It's not everybody who has a cough. You're out and about nowadays and you cough and everybody looks at you like, oh my God, you got it. It's no. It is something to be concerned about, and they are taking proactive measures to keep people, separated. But you look at the numbers and it's like still, the flu has larger numbers than this coronavirus. I think where they're concerned is they don't have like an actual, we have our flu vaccines and things like that. And I think it's one of those, well, we don't have a vaccination for this thing yet. So, we're going to try to keep people apart. I think that is part of it. Sherry Walkle, you just need to educate yourself. Yes, definitely educate yourself. Chris Stanton, Ohio shut down a lot too. They did. That's my home state. My niece is no longer having her prom. They're talking about what are they going to do about graduation. So, and my son is graduating. He's in Oklahoma. He's graduating high school this year, and it's like, and I'm trying to keep close tabs on him, because it's like, what's going to go on? Are you still going to have your graduation here in the middle of May? So, it's affecting everywhere. So, yeah, it could be a lot of things. Allergies, bronchitis. Shauna had bronchitis, sinus infection. There are a number of different things it could be. But people are, getting legit tested for coronavirus because it could be a thing. So one of my coworkers, went in to get tested because, basically he and his family are all getting sick. They're exhibiting some of the symptoms. And he lives in the same area as our friend Dr. Heather Lynn, the archaeologist, who's supposed to be on here in a couple of weeks, but she was in getting tested. And so last I looked, she was still waiting for the results. But she was going through a lot. So yes, Tom, there are different strains of the coronavirus. So and the fevers are a little different than the normal flu. And what's also concerning is, and Chuck Banks saying they're locked up in Iowa too. What is something to also be concerned of is like with a lot of these different things, people can be carriers and not actually exhibit the symptoms themselves. So they could actually have it on them, not get sick at all, but give it to another person. That can happen, and so they are concerned about stuff like that. Robert Hanna, swine flu is a lot worse. And that's kind of the thing. There's that conspiracy theory that every election year there is something like this that goes on. Now, we don't go under quarantine every year, but that is one of the conspiracy theories about these sorts of things, is that, election year or what have you, then, some sort of mysterious illness pops up. And there are a lot of ideas about, hey, when one of these things comes up, whether it's coronavirus or, Ebola or SARS or whatever, that look at what else is going on in the world, that this is a diversion from what is really happening. And so, so I get concerned when I look at, some little one-liner there at the end of the article about, these trailers that have already been set up. Why were they already set up? What was the purpose of that? It makes you wonder, didn't they know about this stuff ahead of time? And so kind of going back to the disclosure bit, is this again a social experiment? I know I just kicked the camera for the live stream. Is this a social experiment to see how people will react in such a situation for some other preparation of something else down the road? Likely give this some time. Whether it's another couple of weeks or a month or what have you, and it'll blow over. We will go back to life as usual, but there will be a number of things that were learned from this. In how much can we push? How much can we push the public? What sort of freedoms can we take away for a little while, and people will accept it and be like, I'm okay with you taking away that freedom right now. How much more will they look at that and say, oh, we took away that one, so they're okay with that one. Next time around, let's try to take away a little bit more. Are we headed down that sort of path? And I know it sounds very Orwellian, but it very well could be. This could be the thing that people have been scared about for a while, and or is it one of those? People talk about disclosure recently. And I rope it back into disclosure here because that was one of the topics. There have been a lot of there's been a lot of information, footage, news, what have you, released in recent years that it's giving more credence to, of course, extraterrestrials, ET life out there, and what have you. A lot of people talk about how perhaps with the movies in Hollywood, we've been conditioned a little bit more that if there is disclosure, then we're going to be okay with it. We've been conditioned with, from Hollywood. We've had these television shows out for a while now, like Ancient Aliens and these sorts of things, or Alien Files Disclosed. We've had, these different videos and reports even from the military of seeing ET activities. So okay, we're conditioning these people that it exists. So now let's, during a again, coronavirus is legit. During a worldwide concern, let's throw out something in there to get the masses stirred up, other than just the coronavirus stuff, shortage and stuff like that. Let's see what happens and see how they react, and see if our plan of disclosure is going to work, or do we have to wait a little bit more? Are they still freaking out too much that we still can't tell them about this? So it's some interesting things to think about. So Dave Wilkerson, do you think the aliens are looking and laughing at us? Well, that's kind of this one here. Forget it, Bob. This planet still can't get their shit together. That was the purpose of this meme here. Sorry, we're closed. So in some ways they may be just kind of shaking their heads, and they're like, what in the world are these humans doing? Maybe. So, Greg Rankin, I have quarantined my 97-year-old aunt. I'm doing all her shopping and banking for her. Good. Yeah, it's the elderly that you really have to be on the lookout for. And, Shauna works at a nursing home, and so, they've kind of really battened down the hatches there. Only people who are essentially on their deathbed, and they're going to be like gone within days, are having visitors right now. And even those visitors that come in for those people, they have to get temperature checks and, all of this stuff before they're even allowed back there. So they're being very, very careful about it, and rightfully so. Chuck Banks, my daughter is at ground zero up in Washington State. It is bad. Yeah. What in the world is with Washington State? They got like hit bad with this thing. It's like the boat from China went straight to there and blew this thing up in Washington State. It's kind of crazy. So, let's see, Victoria Monday. There's a theory running around that this is basically a hoax and the government wants us all contained so there won't be mass gatherings. Something is about to go down. If there aren't mass gatherings anywhere, there won't be any mass shootings or attacks on the public. The coronavirus itself is legit. Because I know people that are suffering from illnesses that are getting tested, and so that itself is a legitimate thing. But I do wonder about some of these other things that are put in there, like the different shortages. I mean, the shortages are happening now. I'm going to the store and seeing it, but originally the original reports, again, all it takes is that little injection of one social media post. That's all it takes, is that one person saying, "Oh my God, I went to the store, can't find toilet paper." It's because of the pandemic that's going on right now. We're losing the supplies of stuff, and then people go crazy and go to the stores because they saw it there on social media, and that just starts to snowball. So if there is a hoax, I believe it would be that the initial shortage of stuff is in short supply now, but the initial report of that may have actually been a hoax, whether it was some kid goofing around or the actual government doing a social experiment and testing. So and when it comes to locking people up, that's what I was talking about with the San Francisco stuff, and getting people in the trailers. It's like, okay, here's the talk of putting people in the trailers that they were talking about 15 years ago. And then the fact that they had already had them set up, it makes you wonder. So, so Chuck Banks, what about all the talk of underwater UFOs? Well, they may actually be safe. They may actually be safe down there from the virus, right? There's a lot of different theories about underwater UFOs. On the Alaska Triangle show that we did, there was an episode about that people have seen the UFOs come up out of the water. There may be bases down there. They've have some photographs of what looks like could be alien bases down there. But that's a big theory. And it's a excellent place for an extraterrestrial to hide their craft, because there's large parts of the ocean that are just unmapped, that we just don't know anything about, the deep parts of the world. So it'd be very easy for them to hide down there, as long as, I guess, their craft is waterproof. So, let's see. Tammy Heitzman, I remember hearing in the 80s already that we were due for a pandemic. History shows us there will be pandemics. We need to always know one will come and need to better prepare. Like behind the scenes medically, so we have large-scale response plan in place. We push those ideas to the side as time went on. Well, yeah, people get kind of lethargic, kind of life goes on, and then, we get relaxed. Everything's kind of honky-dory and we're okay. If you remember, I guess kind of the last big thing would have been 9/11, and all of a sudden everybody was on complete alert around the country, and So that's kind of when everybody was, just really peaked and going out getting things. And we didn't go through like shortages like this, but yeah, there were things being bought up at the store, and gun sales were increasing and things like that. So there's like, when something happens, all of a sudden we get vigilant for a long time, and that of course changed the the airline industry, and TSA was put into place. And so we gave up again. Something happens, we give up some freedoms. And you think it's been almost 20 years now. So over time we get a little bit more relaxed. Now we have this happen. So yeah, every once in a while something happens and it puts us on alert, and then we relax for a while. When it comes to something like this, it was 100 years ago, the Spanish flu. Who remembers that? We weren't around back then. I mean, that my great grandmother died from that. But my grandparents have long since passed away. They would have been the ones that would have remembered. I mean, it affected my grandfather, obviously. He was 4 years old at the time. So they would have remembered something like that. But people these days, we don't remember that stuff, not like that. So we kind of, as we move from generation to generation, we forget history. I was in the Boy Scouts, be prepared, that sort of thing. So I try to stay stocked up on stuff. I mean, I don't have like a massive hoard of anything, but I try to at least keep, the pantries at least somewhat full, so that, just in case there's a rainy day, I'm not one of these people that, there's a snowstorm coming, so let's go to that's when it happens, right? There's a snowstorm, so all of a sudden everybody buys milk and bread from the store as if, everything's going to be shut down for 3 weeks. Which doesn't happen. There's a bad storm that night, everything's shut down for a day, and then we resume the next day. But yet, now everybody's stocked up on milk and bread. It's kind of nuts. But that's what happens. So, I basically make sure that I'm not one of those people that are rushing to the store last minute, that I have stuff here. But for the most part, people are just, I've seen these videos of like people lined up for blocks to try to get into Costco before it opens, lined up for blocks. They each have a shopping cart, and the news vehicle is driving past them, and they are lined up. It looked like, what it reminded of me was, you see these old videos from from like Russia 100 years ago, when people were starving, or even Germany back then too. Where people were starving, lining up, just to get like a crumb of bread. Because the economy had just like tanked, and there were no jobs, you couldn't get food, and so people were lined up for like miles to get food. And that's what this reminded me of. You see all these people lined up for miles to get into Costco. So it's our modern version of all that. So let's see. Tom Nicholas, why does the media also add to the count but don't subtract the ones that were cured? Yeah, that's kind of interesting. We'll put in there the number of cases, the number of people that died, but they don't actually. I mean, I guess you kind of have to assume. Well, no, you shouldn't. I was about to say you kind of have to assume that if there's 93 people reported and 3 people that died, then 90 were cured or were okay, or what have you. But there could be some of that 90 that are still dealing with the symptoms. So it would be interesting to see, if they would put currently have gone through the whole cycle and they're fine. These are the number that died. These are the ones that, the number of the people that currently have it and they're still going through the illness. That would be interesting to see those types of numbers. Robert Hanna, way off topic. I was surprised you weren't on the paranormal episode of the Alaska Triangle. Yeah, that was a little interesting since I was, paranormal investigator. But they had, there are a couple of paranormal episodes on there. They had some other guys doing that. So they wanted me up there for the portal, vortice, electromagnetism stuff. That was kind of my role in that whole thing. So, yeah, Kathy Saliento, FEMA has all those empty camps about. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier was, them setting up the trailers. It was a big deal with conspiracy theorists about 15 years ago, and it kind of like went by the wayside. And like now it's, people are being ushered into, they're not FEMA trailers. These are state owned by California, but people are being ushered into the trailers. So it's kind of that same concept on the state level. And, so what's going on there? Because these trailers were set up beforehand. And Tanya Rogers, long food lines during the Depression, or yeah, people lined up to see if they could, find work that day, and many of them getting turned away. Yeah, and Kathy, the Russian breadlines, exactly. Yep. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop up the call-in number if anybody wants to call in. And let me make sure I have this set up right for this, because I don't know if I do. So there we go. So if anybody wants to call in, go ahead. And in the meantime, we will just continue chatting for now. And put that over on the side over there. All right. So Tim Schoen. Oh, okay. He's saying I should have been the star of the show. Well, there are a lot of good guys on that show. So, and we had one of them on last week, Johnny Enoch. Fantastic. He's actually braved the whole thing. He went out to Egypt. He was at, what was it, the night before last, I think? He had flown into Heathrow Airport, and he was like, it's still busy. Everything was fine there in the UK at Heathrow Airport, and then flew to Egypt. And so they're doing their Egypt thing right now, which is cool. They're going to be down there for the next couple of weeks. So that's still going on. The show goes on with Johnny Enoch, and then we're going to have Jeremy Ray on from MUFON next week. So have some good guests coming up here that were on the Alaska Triangle, and. Yeah, see, Tom, that's happening too. They're kind of rationing it. He's saying that the toilet paper and paper towels, he had to put one back. You're only allowed to buy one. So yeah, they're starting to cut back on the number that you can buy, and so it's like rationing. And so this is, kind of the sort of thing that we see during like a world war or what have you. When they were doing food rationing and things like that. We today are not familiar with these sorts of things. So, yeah, Shauna's been posting a lot of articles on her Facebook, so you guys can check those stuff out. So, and Dave, yeah, you can fly for cheap now for sure. But they're talking about, now they're even talking about cutting back on domestic flights, especially to Washington State. So I had some friends, my event at the end of this month, Phenomenology in Pennsylvania, ended up getting canceled. But before that happened, I had some friends from Washington State that were actually making the flight out to Pennsylvania to do that. But there was talk back then about canceling flights out of Washington State. And they're just like, what in the world's going on? They haven't done that yet, but there is talk about possibly making that happen. So we're seeing these different things come to fruition. So so Tammy's worrying about friends and family who are immunocompromised. Yeah, that have compromised immune systems. It's very concerning. If you have a compromised immune system, the elderly, what have you, these are the people to really be concerned about. If this thing goes like widespread or what have you, those are the people that are going to be greatly affected. And I know I say if it goes widespread, it's like everybody's shutting down. It is kind of widespread, but actually the number of people that are infected is actually a low percentage. And so, I guess it's my hope that this is really just a proactive measure and not one of these where, they're taking away freedoms. And again, it's conspiracy theory, but it could be. So I went back to the disclosure thing real quick, because I was kind of roping that in here as far as testing the people to see if we're okay for disclosing or giving a little bit more information now, see how they might react. And of course, we're failing right now, greatly failing. But an interesting thing that I saw here recently with a interview with Richard Dolan. Of course, he's one of the guys, Ancient Aliens. He's got a podcast, written a number of books and all that stuff on the subject. But something that he made a point of was that a lot of the information that we're getting now, has been things that have happened, sightings, stuff from the military. It's all kind of like happened over the last 15, 20 years. and they're kind of neglecting. They're making it sound like this is all new. Like the the gimbal video that they talk about. They happened back in 2004. They're acting like this is all new, that we haven't seen stuff like this before. And it's like they're all forgetting that there were sightings and reports from like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Everything that like Project Blue Book was doing. They've kind of like discarded all of that, like that none of that happened, and they're treating it like all this is new. It's kind of weird, the way that information is given to us, the way it's kind of spoon fed to us about the way things are is not really the way it always has been. So it's something that we kind of need to be careful about and look at. Okay, this is a piece of information that we're getting today from whether it's our government or some agency or what have you, but is that really the way it's always been? If they're acting like this is new information, but when you look at it, it's like no, this is something that's been going on like 60, 70 years. So it's kind of interesting when they start interjecting these ideas that just aren't quite, there's something a little off there. So let's see. So Victoria Monday, there was an article saying that they were limiting gun sales in New Orleans. Does that have to do with, what does that have to do with a virus? Well, it's interesting. It's kind of like the same thing with alcohol. What does limiting the sales of alcohol have to do with a virus? Which, yeah, that was another thing that they're low on at the store was, the cases of beer. I think it's, again, it's a method of control. So is there a logical reason? No, because why are we selling out of toilet paper when, there's nothing associated between the virus and toilet paper? You don't get diarrhea with this thing. But yet there we are. So I think they're trying to limit people from panic buying. See, gun sales are something that went up after 9/11, and it, reasonably, of course, it did, because we were attacked, and so gun sales went up. And with something like this, we're not getting attacked, but people get skittish. And so they feel that it's that idea that you are not in control. We're not in control anyway. That's the thing. We are not in control anyway. We're supposed to be in a free country, and it's more free than other systems in the past, I suppose. But it's an illusion. We are under a system of control, and where that's come into play is these days more so is with the banks. Long time ago, it was more so with with the church. The church was the one that controlled you, religion. But as that's kind of gone by the wayside in more modern times, it's money. Money has become that new god, and if you control the god, then you control the people. And so, we've seen that here with the markets. The markets absolutely freaking tanked on this. So, you start to wonder, okay, so, what's going on here with, my father, he retired a couple years ago. Their retirement fund got hit big time, of course. So, it starts to make you wonder, okay, what's the long-term goal here? So gun sales, okay. They're going to refrain from that because people are going to go out there and they're going to start to buy more guns because they're feeling unsafe and they want to feel protected. And a gun does help people to feel more protected. So we're going to try to keep people from accidentally shooting themselves, I guess, is the idea. But, there's another sense that they're feeling scared, not just from the virus thing, but also money. Their pocketbook is getting hit. A lot of people are out of work right now. Their work has been put on hold and they can't make money. And it's a scary time. And so people go and they buy guns when they get scared. Let's see what else you guys have here, because I think we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon. So Tammy makes a good point for those that are battling bronchitis. Your system is working hard to fight the bronchitis, so it makes you more susceptible to getting COVID-19. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Tanya, definitely take care of yourself, and those who are bugging out, because I get that it's getting late. Have a good evening. Dave Wilkerson, we went through 8 pallets of toilet paper in 2 days. Yeah, it's selling out like hotcakes. It's insane the way it's selling out. Kathy Ciliento, people are afraid too, if they're out of work down the road, they won't have the money to buy later. Yeah, absolutely. It's a scary thought, being out of money, and it's not your fault. And see, that's the insane part about it, is it's not your fault that this thing happened in China, and then it came over here. It's gone everywhere. And then the government is reacting and taking things away and shutting things down. You have no control over it. This is, again, this comes down to we're not really free. We are in a quote unquote free country, and we have a lot more freedoms here than many other countries around the world. So I'm not complaining about that. But the idea that we are, a completely free country, no. I mean, we have laws, we have regulations, all that stuff. But, at any point in time, the government can just freeze shit. If they wanted to, they could come in and freeze your bank account right now. Just boom, done. The IRS could come freeze it. Just whatever reason, boom, done. You're turned off. That is a legit thing, and there's nothing you can do to it. Unless they are like, well, you have to do this, that, and the other thing. But if they just decided we're going to freeze everybody's assets, there would probably be a revolt. So they're probably not going to do that. But are they doing different things right now to kind of test those waters? Let's take away some things now. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Let's take away some things now, see how they react, so that in the future here, if we want to take away more for whatever reason, there's already a precedent set that we took these things away. So, oh, okay, I have calls. Okay, thank you. I didn't hear the ding. Usually we hear a ding, but I didn't hear a ding. So thank you for letting me know that there's calls. Awesome. So.
Hello?
Hello.
Mike.
Hello, you're on the air.
You have to turn off your volume in the background.
I thought I did. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, who am I speaking with?
Kathy Salento.
Oh, Kathy, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Good,
I've had better
good.
days.
Okay, yeah, you're the one that told me I
love
had a
the
call.
shows. Yeah, and there was somebody in front of me, and I guess they must have hung up because they said I was a second in line.
Okay.
So
I apologize for that. Usually I hear the ding, but yeah, I didn't. So.
Yeah, it said they put you on hold, so there was somebody ahead of me and then me. So I thought you were speaking to that person.
Oh, okay.
But I'm glad you're taking calls, because sometimes what you want to write in the chat, there's not enough room, or you can't explain it right, and you want to say it a certain way.
Right.
So this is a great forum with the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you like to ask or comment on?
I want to ask you a question about this.
Sure.
There's a timeline, okay, that if you notice, well, I'm inquisitive. That's what I do. I gotta know. This started with China, right? And I had wrote this in the chat room. Like, they got 1.6 billion people there. I don't know how many got the virus offhand. I don't know. I don't remember the number, but there were a lot.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's contained. I mean, there are millions of people there. Does that give you food for thought, or make you go, or, all of a sudden, did they really quarantine that well?
Well, I mean, we would have to investigate and look at how they were able to do that. Because, yeah, it does seem like they were able to get it quarantined and taken care of pretty quickly. But China also has a very different government than we do. They are still a communist country, and they have a lot of rules and restrictions. One of the big ones, of course, is that you can only have one child, and there are certain things that they will come and do if they discover that you have a second. So,
right.
Yeah, I would like to see how they may have issued that quarantine and eradicated the illness there. It does seem like it happened fairly quickly, but again, it's a totally different country. I mean, even Italy right now. I mentioned that earlier. They've essentially quarantined the country, but again, you look at the videos and everybody's hanging out on their balconies. So how much is going to work? I don't know.
I know, right? The Italians know how to party. They make a party out of everything. I can speak on behalf of them. I am one myself.
Right. Which maybe that's how they spread it all to each other anyway.
Yeah, probably. They're huggy, kissy people. That's what they do.
Right.
Got to remember that too. So.
Absolutely.
But and think of how this traveled. Like Russia is like a neighbor to China. They're very close. One person in Russia gets it.
Yeah. You look at some of those other nearby countries.
Does that have to do with the weather? I don't know.
Well, yeah, the parts of Russia that do border onto China are some more sparsely populated areas. They're pretty remote. It's still winter, and Russian winters are pretty cold. So does that just kind of nip it in the bud right there? Maybe, because it's not like China's anywhere close to Moscow or St. Petersburg or anything like that.
Right, exactly. Well, anyway, I just wanted to call and let you know that I am so glad you're going to be taking phone calls. Is this going to be a daily thing?
I've we've done it a couple times before, and there are times that I set everything up for the phone call, and then I just forget that I set up for calls. So I happen to remember this time. So yeah, I would like to do it a little bit more often, to take some calls and get people a little bit more interactive in this way too. A little bit different than what we do on Edge of the Rabbit Hole.
Oh yeah, but both shows are great anyway.
Thank you.
But anyway, send Shauna my love. I hope she feels better. I know what she's going through. I got bronchitis myself.
Yeah. Well, she's pretty much over the bronchitis. She has a little phlegm she's still dealing with, but I will pass that along.
Okay. Thank you, and I appreciate the shows.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy.
And saw you on TV. Totally awesome.
Thank you. Now we're hoping for a second season. You never know.
I hope so. Keep your fingers crossed.
Thank you.
It's great stuff. It really is. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. You have a great night.
All right.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That's one of our longtime chatters down there, Kathy Cilienzo, so we absolutely appreciate that. Since it is getting a little bit late here, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So we'll just take off the call in there, and we'll get to it.